This story is about a land that cannot be measured by our time. It existed long before nature had a witness. Here the stone remembers what we cannot name, and the water holds light as though it is in no hurry. This is a place where silence is not emptiness, but a form of memory, and a place where what remains is carried away by neither ice, nor epochs, nor observers, nor time. What is at stake here is not a plot, not a hero, not a resolution. What is at stake is the simple right to see the world in its original state, without decoration, without improvement, without a person to explain how to admire it. This land rests on a balance millions of years old, and every warm decade erodes it so imperceptibly that it is almost impossible to notice. The ice forms later, the snow leaves earlier. A pup born in a snow burrow right on the ice does not have time to grow strong before the ice breaks again. At the same time, the great freshwater seal, the only one of its kind, holds on to an edge that almost no one knows about. The lakes, of which there are more than 100,000 here, continue to mirror the sky just as they did before people arrived. The forest, grown right from the cracks in granite, stands as it stood 200 years ago. The stone emerging at the surface remembers the planet before the first life appeared on it. All of this exists right now, and there is not a single guarantee that it will exist forever. Would you dare to spend even a single day in a place older than any human memory? Where no one will ask your opinion, no one will wait for your reaction, but simply continue being what it has always been. Silence over the water, the reflection of a pine in a lake, the call of a loon on a white night. Listen, this story is about this place, and about what you can still manage to see within it. To understand Karelia, you must start with geology, because here it is not a backdrop, but the foundation that explains everything else. Where do 89 lakes come from? Why do pines grow straight from rock? Why is the terrain so rounded, smooth, without sharp angles? The Karelian crystalline shield is the oldest foundation of the East European platform, which in other places lies kilometers deep beneath sedimentary rock, but here emerges at the surface. On top of it lies the history of the last million years, written in ice. The last glacier left Karelia about 19 years ago. It was several kilometers thick, and imagining that scale is almost impossible. The ice pressed against the crystalline shield with such force that the Earth's crust sank under its weight. When the glacier retreated, the crust began to slowly rise back up, and is still rising today at a rate of centimeters per year. This is called isostatic rebound, and it is a real geological process happening right now as this video plays. Karelia is literally growing. As it retreated, the glacier left behind the landscape we see today. It polished the rocks, which are now smooth, rounded, with characteristic grooves, traces of boulders that the ice dragged across the granite. It carved out basins in the bedrock, which now hold lakes. It deposited long, winding ridges of carried material, eskers, which stretch across the Karelian landscape like frozen waves. An esker is a ridge that the glacier formed within itself, in a tunnel of meltwater beneath the ice. When the ice melted, the tunnel remained as a hill. Some Karelian eskers extend for tens of kilometers, and today roads run along them, because they are the only dry, elevated ground in a world of bogs and lakes. 89 lakes. That is the official figure, which sounds like an exaggeration, but is not. If you count all bodies of water larger than a hectare, there are more than 100. Water covers around 20% of the Republic's area. Every fifth square kilometer here is water. From the air, Karelia looks like lacework, where dark forest and bright water alternate so unpredictably that the boundary between land and water loses meaning. This is not a forest with lakes, and not lakes within a forest. It is a single whole, where one flows into the other without a clear boundary. Lake Ladoga is the largest in Europe. 89 square kilometers of water, with depths reaching 230 meters in places, and a volume of nearly 900 cubic kilometers. This is not a lake in the ordinary sense, but an inland sea with its own climate, its own storms, and its own currents. In a storm, waves on Ladoga reach 3 to 4 meters, quite an oceanic scale for a lake in the middle of a continent. Ladoga freezes in winter, but not completely and not every year. On open stretches, wind and current prevent the ice from forming. Where Ladoga does freeze, there lives a creature you will not find anywhere else in quite this form. The Ladoga ringed seal is a freshwater seal, one of only a few such in the world. It entered Ladoga after the last glaciation, when the lake was still connected to the Baltic Sea. Then the connection was severed, and the seal remained. Over no years of isolation, it became a distinct subspecies, slightly smaller than its marine relatives, with a different diet and different behavior. It feeds on smelt, vendus, and perch, whatever Ladoga offers. In winter, the seal gives birth to a single pup in a snow burrow right on the ice. The mother nurses it for several weeks on milk so rich in fat that the pup doubles its weight in that time. Then the mother returns to the lake. The pup is left alone on the ice and learns to survive. And this has worked for thousands of years. Now there is a problem: warm winters. The ice forms later, lasts less, and breaks up sooner. In bad years, the pups do not have enough time to grow strong before the ice breaks. The population holds at around no individuals, but barely, and every warm winter means pups that never had a chance. Further north lies Lake Onega, the second largest in Europe, more elongated in shape, with deeply indented bays in the north that cut into the forest like true fjords. The water in Onega is darker, the shores wilder. On the rocks of Onega's shores are carved petroglyphs, drawings that Neolithic people made in stone 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. Elk, birds, boats, people, creatures we cannot identify. Those same birds and elk still live here. The people who drew them are long gone. At its northern edge, Karelia touches the White Sea, and this is no longer a lake, but a true Arctic Sea, part of the Arctic Ocean. Colder, saltier, with tides and an entirely different fauna. In summer, beluga whales enter the White Sea, small white whales that stay close to shores and river mouths. They can be seen from the bank, white backs in gray water, sometimes entire groups of 15 to 20 animals. The beluga is vocal. It clicks, whistles, produces sounds that carry above the water, which is why it is called the sea canary. This is not a rare phenomenon. This is a Karelian summer, if you know where to look. The Karelian forest is, first and foremost, pine. Pale, reddish-barked with an open sky overhead, nothing like the dark spruce of the Siberian taiga. To begin with pine is to begin correctly. The Karelian pine forest on a rocky foundation is one of the most beautiful forest types in Russia and one of the most resilient. Pine grows right from cracks in the granite, sending roots into the rock in search of soil. There is almost no soil beneath the Karelian pine forest, a thin layer of fallen needles on the rock foundation, with negligible nutrients and moisture that is either too much or absent entirely. And yet the pines grow to 20-30 meters, live for 230 years, and form open, sun-drenched forests where it is easy to breathe. Pine knows how to make a great deal from very little, and that perhaps is the essential Karelian skill. Spruce occupies the lower, wetter, more shaded places, lake shores in lowlands, waterlogged areas, north-facing slopes. A spruce forest is darker and denser than a pine forest. It is cool here even on a hot day. Underfoot lies a thick layer of moss that swallows your foot. Beneath an old spruce, almost nothing grows. Only moss, fungal mycelium, and fallen needles several centimeters deep. This is a different ecosystem with different species of birds, insects, and fungi. The Karelian forest is not a monolith but a mosaic, carved out by terrain and water. Karelian birch is a phenomenon found nowhere else in such numbers. By nature, it is an ordinary birch in which a genetic peculiarity causes the wood to develop a distinctive marbled pattern. Dark veins and swirls against a pale background, unusually dense and beautiful. Karelian birch grows among ordinary birches, alongside them, sometimes in the same grove, and can be identified by its bumpy, uneven bark, as though something is rolling beneath it. Why here specifically, and why this mutation has spread so widely, that is a question with no clear answer. Karelian birch simply exists, and that is enough to make you think. Bogs cover about 3% of Karelia's territory, a third of all the land. These are not dreary, wet wastelands, but a landscape with character and biology that astonishes on close examination. Sphagnum moss, the foundation of the Karelian bog, does not merely grow, it creates an environment, acidifying it, retaining water, and decomposing so slowly that layers of peat accumulate at a rate of a millimeter a year. In Karelian bogs, peat layers reach several meters deep, thousands of years of accumulated organic matter, a true archive. Pollen, spores, and insect remains are preserved in the peat, and from the composition of these layers, scientists read the history of the Karelian climate over the last years with a precision that no other method provides. The sundew on a Karelian bog is a small carnivorous plant with red sticky hairs on its leaves. The bog has little nitrogen, with almost no nutrients in the soil, so the sundew obtains them from insects. A mosquito lands on the leaf, sticks to the adhesive hairs, the leaf slowly curls around the prey, enzymes digest it, and within a week, nothing remains of the mosquito. The leaf unfurls and waits for the next. The sundew does not hunt in the usual sense. It is simply structured so that insects stick to it on their own. This is passive predation, honed over millions of years. A single Karelian bog holds thousands of sundews, and over a summer they consume millions of mosquitoes. Cloudberries ripen in July, and in good years the Karelian bogs literally turn orange. The berries shift from red to golden transparent within a few days, and that window cannot be missed. Overripe cloudberries run right through your fingers. Bears eat them, foxes eat them, birds eat them. The bog in July is not a quiet place. It is a feast that lasts exactly as long as the cloudberry season. White nights in Karelia are not the St. Petersburg romance of drawbridges. They are a physiological event for every living thing. In June, the sun in central Karelia does not fully set. Twilight merges seamlessly into dawn, and it is light enough at night to read. The song thrush sings at 3 in the morning with the same intensity as at noon. Insects are active around the clock. Plants photosynthesize 24 hours a day and grow noticeably faster than at more southerly latitudes. The Karelian summer is short, but it uses every minute. Nature here operates in a state of emergency. At the end of summer, Atlantic salmon enter Karelian rivers from the White Sea. They navigate rapids, leap over waterfalls, and reach their spawning grounds in clear, fast-flowing rivers. Karelian rivers are shorter than Siberian ones. The distance from the sea to the spawning grounds is less, but the journey is no less arduous. The rapids are steep, the current strong, and in dry years the water is low. The salmon that reaches its spawning ground expends everything it has, and after spawning it dies. Its body becomes food for the river ecosystem. This is not the Kamchatka scale of millions of fish, but the mechanism is the same. The sea feeds the river through fish. The osprey in Karelia is a common bird, and that sounds like a diminishment, but in fact it is something to be proud of. There are more ospreys here than in most European countries, because everything they need is present. Clean lakes, tall pines, minimal human disturbance. The osprey builds enormous nests at the tops of pines and returns to the same nest year after year, adding new material each season. After 10 years, the nest sometimes breaks the very tree it sits in. The osprey plunges feet first for fish, enters the water at speed, seizes the fish with spiny talons, and can dive to a meter in depth. It then shakes itself dry in midair, exactly like a dog, and flies to the nest with the fish turned head forward for aerodynamics. These are details observed at close range, and Karelia makes that possible. The white-tailed eagle over a Karelian lake is one of the defining images of this place. The immense bird, with a wingspan of up to 2.5 meters, glides low over the water in search of prey, and then follows the sudden strike, lifting off with a fish in its talons. The white-tailed eagle is common here because there are old trees for nesting, fish through winter, and minimal disturbance. Its nests reach 1.5 meters in diameter. The pair returns to the same nest year after year, and an old nest weighs several hundred kilograms, a long-term investment in a place, a partner, a territory. The loon on a Karelian lake produces a sound that is never forgotten, piercing, mournful, simultaneously like laughter and like crying. It rises over the water in the silence of the white night and carries across the entire lake. The loon nests right at the water's edge. Its legs are set far back on its body, ideal for swimming but rendering the bird almost helpless on land. In the water, it is another matter. It dives to 77 meters, can stay submerged for several minutes, and sees better underwater than in air. Its entire being is designed for water. The shore is needed only for the nest. Everything else is the lake. The Eurasian beaver in Karelia is the chief engineer of small rivers and streams. Suitable sites are abundant here. Streams are countless, and aspen and willow grow along the banks everywhere. In a single night, a beaver can gnaw through a tree 20 centimeters in diameter. This is not destruction, it is construction. The dam raises the water level, drowns the bankside trees, and creates a pond. Dead trees in the water are colonized by woodpeckers, ducks, and mink. Aquatic plants spread in the shallows, frogs appear, and herons follow. One beaver sets in motion a chain that within a few years transforms a modest stream into a rich ecosystem with dozens of species. Remove the beaver, and the chain falls apart. This is what is meant by a keystone species, and Karelia is full of them. A Karelian lake in calm conditions is a mirror of such precision that it is impossible to tell where the reflection ends and the sky begins. The pines on the shore stand twice, above and below. Clouds drift in both directions. A white tern flies over the water, and the same tern flies beneath it. This is not a poetic image, it is optics. The surface of a still lake reflects light with almost no loss. In Karelia, where there are more than stone knoll lakes, on a windless summer day, the entire landscape doubles. Earth and sky exchange places, and this is one of the strangest and most beautiful experiences that wild nature offers, and it costs nothing. From November onward, everything in Karelia changes. Different light, different sounds, different animals. Snow falls as early as November, the lakes freeze over, and in the north the temperature drops to -30. The forest under snow looks different. Spruces in snow-laden coats, pines with white caps on their branches, birches, slender, dark, vivid against the white background. The silence of a Karelian winter forest is dense, almost physically tangible, close to the silence of the deep taiga. The capercaillie overwinters in the pine forest, feeding on needles and buds. This is low-calorie food with a high resin content, but the capercaillie has a specialized digestive tract for it. In winter, the capercaillie barely moves, conserving energy, and in hard frost it plunges into the snow and waits there until it warms. Under the snow, +1 degree. Outside, -25. The math is simple. The capercaillie worked it out millions of years ago and has not changed anything since. The black grouse lek in Karelia begins in April, when snow still lies on the fields and bogs. The males gather at the same spot for generations, bubbling, hissing, fighting. The females watch. This is a display whose meaning is selection. The females choose the best, And through this pressure, the population improves generation by generation. The lek site is a sacred place for black grouse. They return to it regardless of what happens there, sometimes right in the middle of a road. The crossbill is a winter bird that nests in January in freezing temperatures. Its crossed bill is a key to the spruce cones that are abundant in Karelian forests in winter. The crossbill inserts its bill between the scales, levers them apart, and extracts the seed, a task that requires specialized anatomy and learned skill. The crossbill is the only bird of temperate latitudes that can afford winter nesting, precisely because it found a resource that no one else exploits. The chicks are raised on cones in the frost. An empty niche turns out to be an opportunity. The river otter in Karelia is active year-round. It needs open leads and unfrozen rapids, and it finds them, where the current is strong, where water tumbles over rocks, ice does not form. The otter dives through an open lead, hunts beneath the ice, and returns. It carries in its mind a map of the under-ice space, where the exit is, where the current runs, where it can breathe. This is navigation in darkness, in cold, in enclosed space, and it works. The common crane is the sound of Karelian spring and autumn. In spring, its call rises over the bogs, carrying for several kilometers, piercing and trumpet-like, rising above everything else. Cranes nest in bogs in remote, hard-to-reach places and tend their chicks for a long time. In autumn, crane flocks pass over Karelia, thousands of birds high in the sky, calling as they fly south, and this is one of the most beautiful signs that summer has ended. The brown bear in Karelia is an everyday presence. There are around all of them. The Karelian forest suits the bear well. Berries, fish in the rivers, ant colonies in rotting stumps, hazelnuts in the south. In summer, the bear eats almost continuously, building fat reserves. In August and September, Karelian bears come to the spawning rivers when Atlantic salmon and pink salmon run. Fewer fish than on Kamchatka, but the bear manages. In autumn, it switches to bilberries and lingonberries and strips the bushes so quickly that it eats several kilograms in a day. By October, the bear is fat, heavy, and almost sluggish. In October to November, a den until April. The wolf is returning to Karelia. The population has grown over the last 20 years. The wolf is needed here. It regulates the populations of elk and deer, removes weak and sick animals, and keeps ungulates on the move. Where there are no wolves, elk overgraze the young forest, staying in one place. Where wolves are present, elk do not linger, and the forest recovers. This is a trophic cascade, an ecosystem-wide shift driven by a predator's behavior. The wolf changes not only the number of elk, but the way they use space, and that changes the forest. An elk track in the Karelian snow is large and deep, with the distinctive impression of split hooves. From the track you can read behavior. Here the elk was walking calmly. Here it stopped. Here it pressed deeper into the snow. Here it broke into a run. The stride lengthened and quickened. Here it stopped again. A story written in snow. The Karelian winter forest is full of such stories. You only need to know how to read them. Siberian larch in Karelia does not form continuous forests as it does in Siberia. It is found in isolated patches, especially in the east. In autumn it turns golden, and against a backdrop of dark spruces and white birches, this is entirely unexpected. A conifer with yellow foliage in October always makes an impression on those seeing it for the first time. Polar night reaches northern Karelia in December, and it is an entirely different state of the world. The sun barely rises above the horizon, or does not rise at all. It is light from 10 until 2, and even then only as twilight. The forest stands in a bluish half-dark, the lakes buried under snow. Life does not stop, but shifts into a mode of minimal energy expenditure. Wolves hunt in the dark. Otters dive beneath the ice. Crossbills eat cones and warm their chicks in the frost. Life continues, quietly, without unnecessary movement. There is something Karelia does not say aloud. There are lakes here in which the water is so acidic and so nutrient-poor that almost nothing lives in them. This is not pollution. It is a natural condition called dystrophy. The water in such lakes is dark brown from humic acids leached out of peat, clear but dark, like very weak tea. There are no fish, or almost none, no aquatic plants. On the shores, moss and pine. These lakes have their own world, specialized insect species, certain algae, rare invertebrates. They are ecosystems of extremity, and they are beautiful precisely in their emptiness. Karelia is a place that does not shout about itself. It does not erupt, and it does not storm every day. It simply is, quiet, ancient, precise. A rock 3 billion years old, a lake in a basin carved by a glacier, a pine in a crack in granite, a seal on the Ladoga ice, a loon on the water in a white night. This is not exotic. This is what remains when everything unnecessary is removed. Nature in its most basic, original form. Stone, water, forest, animals, sky. Please write in the comments how Karelia sits with you. It truly matters to me to understand whether something from this story has stayed inside you. Tell me also, would you want to see this land with your own eyes at least once? Or is it already alive for you now? And one last thing, do you prefer watching in horizontal format or vertical for your phone?